Welcome to Lesson 2 in this series, covering American government and politics, which has been created to support the teaching of A-Level politics. This lesson examines the advantages and disadvantages of the Electoral College. The lesson assumes that you already know the workings of the Electoral College. If you do not have a firm understanding of how the Electoral College operates at this stage, return to your notes and textbook before starting this lesson. Let's start with one of the principal advantages of the Electoral College. It recognizes the critical role of the states in a federal republic. The allocation of electors provides for the important role of the state in a federal republic by granting at least 3 Electoral College votes to each state, while also distributing some electoral votes on the basis of population. This is important because the presidential election should recognize that voters in a federal system of government are citizens of 2 separate sovereign entities, both of the United States and of their home states. However, as a disadvantage, it could be argued that small states are actually overrepresented. The inclusion of a state's 2 Senate seats in the calculation of their Electoral College votes means that some states receive a disproportionately high number of electors compared to their population. For example, in 2020, Wyoming had 1 elector per 194,000 people, but California had 1 elector per 719,000 people. Clearly, this undermines the important democratic principle that individual citizens should have equal influence over the result of elections. Conversely, it could also be argued that voters in large states have too much influence over the result. Voters in large states have an influence on a large number of Electoral College votes and are therefore more powerful in elections. For example, in 2020, a Californian voter had influence over 54 Electoral College votes. That is 20% of the 270 votes required to achieve an Electoral College majority. But a voter in Wyoming had influence over only 3 votes. That's 1% of the 270 requirement. Because of this, presidential candidates are incentivized to focus their campaigns on states that have large Electoral College votes. This can mean that campaigns and policies are unfairly focused on their needs. According to the research organization Fair Vote, in the 2020 presidential election, the major presidential candidates only held campaign events in 17 states. Again, this is important because it undermines the democratic principle that voters should have equal say and influence over the election result. A second advantage of the Electoral College is that it encourages 2-horse races. The Electoral College system encourages a campaign fought between only 2 candidates. This means that winning candidates tend to win more than 50% of the vote. In 25 out of 38 elections between 1864 and 2016, the winner gained more than 50% of the popular vote. This is important for selecting a president, who both represents the United States as head of state as well as head of government. The Electoral College also encourages ideologically broad policy platforms. To win, candidates must also generally conduct campaigns which are ideologically broad, assembling coalitions of voters across the nation to win a majority in the Electoral College. For example, centrist New Democrats like Clinton, Obama, and Biden have been more successful than more left-wing Democrats in campaigning for the White House. This is because they are able to appeal to a much wider demographic and geographic spread. However, a disadvantage is that by encouraging 2-horse races, the Electoral College is unfair to third parties. Candidates not representing the Democrats or Republicans struggled to gain Electoral College votes due to the winner-takes-all system, which exists in 48 states plus Washington, D.C. Ross Perot was the most successful non-mainstream party candidate in recent times, winning 8 million votes in 1992, but no Electoral College votes. No third-party candidate has won any Electoral College votes, aside from faithless electors, since 1968. This is important because restricting the presidential race to two candidates restricts the democratic principle of voter choice. This happens because the winner-takes-all leads to wasted votes. The winner-takes-all system, which is used in 48 states and Washington, D.C., distorts the result. This means that the votes for the losing candidate in a state do not influence the result. For example, in Florida in 2016, 4.5 million voted for Clinton. However, they had no influence on the result because Trump took all 29 Electoral College votes. The Electoral College could be seen as broadly democratic. It involves universal adult suffrage, with all citizens over the age of 18 allowed to vote, and, in most cases, the candidate who wins the national popular votes wins the presidency. However, the Electoral College can be viewed as undemocratic for a number of reasons. It involves the indirect election of the president. Many view it as an 18th century anachronism, designed for a period with poor communications, low literacy, and non-inclusive politics. Of particular concern is that presidents can be elected by winning the Electoral College vote, but losing the popular vote. This means that the candidate with the most votes does not secure the presidency. This is called an Electoral College misfire. Misfires have occurred on 4 occasions: 1876, 1888, 2000, and 2016. In 2016, Clinton won 2.87 million more popular votes than her Republican opponent, Donald Trump. However, she lost the Electoral College, and Trump ultimately became president. Misfires undermine the fundamental democratic principle that the candidate with the most votes should win. Faithless electors are another undemocratic element. Electors who form the Electoral College are not necessarily legally bound to vote for the candidate for whom they are pledged. There have been 16 faithless electors since 1948. That is 16 out of 9,075 elector votes cast. 2016 was an anomalous year in that 7 faithless electors voted. This is important because it disenfranchises the voters who the faithless elector represents. However, faithless electors have never altered the outcome of an election. In summary, we have seen that the Electoral College has several advantages and disadvantages. Firstly, the Electoral College recognizes the critical role of states in a federal republic. However, small states are overrepresented, and voters in large states have too much influence over the result. Secondly, the Electoral College encourages two-horse races and ideologically broad platforms. However, it is unfair to third parties. Finally, the Electoral College is broadly democratic. However, it involves the indirect election of the president and can lead to undemocratic misfires that do not reflect the popular will. While many view the Electoral College as imperfect and in need of reform, we shall see in later lessons how reform is difficult to achieve due to the complicated formal process for amending the Constitution.